Come on in. Welcome, 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 everybody. My name is Noi, rhymes with joy, short for a much longer Hawaiian name. And we're back in this training to talk about how to work smarter, not harder, to build yourself a better body. Now, that's a rather difficult task for us women as we grow older, because we're dealing with a lot of factors that are complicating it, such as hormone imbalances, metabolic slowdown, and decades of unhealthy habits. But when it comes to losing fat, reducing our risk of diseases, for managing our stress, we need to optimize our body, and that all starts with our nutrition. Now, if you've ever struggled with fad diets that have failed in the past, well, you're going to want to take notes on this video, because I'm about to blow the lids on this truth. Diets don't work, and I have proof. And in this training, I'm going to tell you exactly why diets fail 97% of the time. And I'm going to introduce you to 8 health paradigms that I learned in my health coaching school and literally changed the game for me personally. You see, personally, I have struggled with eating disorders and food addictions and huge weight fluctuations since puberty. My relationship with my body has been a love-hate one, to be sure. And I've been on at least 20, probably closer to 50 different fad diets and exercise programs. Those years of yo-yo dieting literally destroyed my health. It created metabolic slowdown, and it contributed to numerous diseases, including high blood pressure, chronic inflammation, pain all over my body. But the worst part was that for so many years, I felt like I was broken, that my body was betraying me, that my body was my enemy. And I could never have a body that I truly loved and accepted. And I know that I am not alone. There are, let me share my screen here. In a 2008 survey posted in Self magazine, found that 75% of women ages 25 to 45 met the criteria for eating disorders. That means that 3 out of 4 women eat, think about, or behave abnormally around food, including skipping meals, restricting major food groups, binge eating, restrained or controlled eating. Feelings of guilt and stress over food are really common in women, and dieting is the most common type of disordered eating. It's disordered because it's not natural. It's only been in the last couple of years that I've learned these paradigms, and I cracked the code on how to build a body that shows up and not blows up. And coming from what I came from, that's saying a lot. I'm now in my 40s, my mid 40s, and I'm thriving. I naturally choose energy-giving foods, and I'm not even tempted anymore by foods that used to be, honestly, a major struggle for me. And it all started with a shift in my mindset, not my diet. Now, with revenue of over, look at this, 946 billion per year for just the eating, nutrition, and weight loss industry, you would think that the dieting industry would offer some effective products. But the truth is, at least 90 to 97% of people who lose weight through dieting will regain it within 2 to 5 years. The studies are astounding, which means that the vast majority, most of the time, diets do not result in long-term weight loss. Why? I mean, this is sad. This makes me really sad, because this is a useless and really expensive gimmick. And on top of that, it makes dieters feel like it's their fault. And so they feel terrible about themselves. I know I did. If I only could have stuck to it, then it would have worked. It's my fault. Dr. Mark Hyman, author of Food, What the Heck Do I Eat? he wrote a great article, and it was called The Reasons Most Diets Fail. And in this article, he said that the reason diets backfire is because people simply restrict too much. They allow the number of calories that they consume to drop below something called the resting metabolic rate. Now, what is the resting metabolic rate? This is important. The resting metabolic rate is, it's sometimes referred to as the RMR, and it's the basic amount of energy or calories that you need to run your metabolism on any given day, just to perform basic functions. Like if you never got out of bed and you didn't spend any energy, then you'd need blank amount of calories. That's your resting metabolic rate. Now, the problem is powerful genetic forces control our survival behavior, and our body's control systems were designed to produce hormones that make us eat more and gain weight, especially whenever we have a chance to, and not lose it, because that's how we survived in the past. Because in the past, there were times of famine. So if it was a feast, like eat up, because we don't know if there's going to be food tomorrow. Eat as much of this mammoth as you can, because we don't know how long it's going to be before we can catch another one. Now, we've evolved over thousands and thousands of years with periods of food scarcity, but we haven't ever in human history known all of this overabundance than ever before. And in fact, this is the first time in human history that more people are dying from eating too much than too little. And in fact, in most of the parts of the world, sugar is more dangerous than gunpowder. Your chances of dying from diabetes are far higher than your chances of dying from war and crime. This is globally, and especially in America. Over the course of human history, this is actually quite a role reversal. And the genes and hormones in us that control our eating behavior were shaped at a time when food was scarce. And that's why if you eat fewer calories than your resting metabolic rate requires, which is pretty much what every diet mandates, then your body instantly perceives danger. And it turns on alarm systems, natural alarm systems that are going to protect you from starvation and slow down your metabolism to conserve calories. It's going to store the food as fat. This is because the body thinks that it might need it later because it's starving. And as a consequence, your body and your hunger hormones also go into starvation mode and yell, eat, please eat, feed me. So you start eating, you eat, and then you inevitably break your diet and gain that weight back because your metabolism is even slower than it started. I'm sure none of you guys have ever experienced that before, right? No, of course we have. We've all experienced that classic rebound weight gain scenario, right? And to make matters worse, when you lose weight, only half of what is lost is fat and the rest is muscle. When someone regains the weight, it's nearly all fat. Now, this is important. This is actually huge because fat cells are mainly used to store energy, but muscle cells actively burn and utilize energy. So fat cells are not going to burn calories like muscle cells do. But when you go on a diet and you lose muscle, but you regain weight and it's nearly all completely fat, what that means is that you're actually losing a big part of your metabolic engine because you're losing muscle tissue and regaining fat. And so actually, that as you regain, you're losing your capacity to burn calories. Complicate that with the fact that perimenopause, makes women lose muscle mass anyway due to the changes in our hormones. This is a pretty big deal. Okay, so think about it. We all know people who struggle with weight and say, I really don't actually eat that much, and they still can't lose weight. And you know what? They're not lying, because when people go on diets over and over and over again, they're generally making themselves bigger over time because they're losing so much muscle and gaining that fat and really throwing all of their hormones out of whack. And it's a bummer, especially for someone who realized, wow, I've dieted my entire adult life. No wonder I'm struggling, because I'm actually causing my own struggle. Now, I'm going to suggest, and this entire training is about a whole new approach to wellness that starts with a I say this every time, mindset shift, mindset shift. And to kick off that mindset shift, I want to introduce you to the 8 new paradigms about nutrition, food, and body that can really start to create real transformation. So what's a paradigm? Okay, so a paradigm is a guideline that we hold as true. And I believe that it's useful to hold as true together, but I would like you to notice as you go through these paradigms, whether you agree or disagree with them. And you don't have to agree with them all. You can disagree with all of them if you like, but I would like for you to jot down your thoughts and your notes, and we can go through each one. And as the video completes, what I'd love to hear from you is what paradigms you do agree with, which paradigms you don't agree with, and which paradigms you're like, well, not really too sure about that. Or maybe I'm a little confused about what you mean about that. And I actually invite you to share your answers in the comment section. So be sure to jot down notes as we go along, okay? Okay, so here's the first paradigm, jumping on it. There are as many diets as there are people on this planet. And what that means is that everybody's unique. No 2 people are exactly the same. So while components of some diets might work for you, your right diet is one that factors in nuances and quirks from your unique body. The second is actually quite similar, which is what's healthy for one person might not be healthy for you. So your perfect way of eating is not necessarily someone else's perfect way of eating. Now, I've had stomach challenges all my life, as far back as I can remember. And I honestly thought that just gas and bloating all the time was just this normal thing that everybody gets. Only recently did I find out that I'm actually sensitive to gluten and dairy. I didn't know that for most of my life. And now then, but I can look at some of my friends who can eat bagels and they have 0 problems. They're 100% fine. So what's healthy for one person might not be healthy for you. And so it's up to you to discover what it is. And how do we do that? Well, that takes us to our third paradigm. Your body is actually the most powerful, least expensive, and best experimentation laboratory in existence. And why is that? Because your body does have an innate wisdom that transcends or is beyond, or one could even say is deeper than any book or authority. You really are sitting in one of the most sophisticated laboratories there is, and you have access to it 24/7. You see, our body is this magnificent machine that is managing and handling thousands of processes without our conscious knowledge. It's happening all on its own because it's connected to some innate source of knowledge. And we often take that for granted. We sell our bodies short in many ways. We forget that actually every single cell of our body has an innate wisdom and an innate knowledge and and knows exactly what to do to operate perfectly. So when we can accept and respect the body's knowledge and authority, then we can go, wow, this is a really interesting place. And we can become curious instead of judgmental about our bodies. Remember, curiosity defeats chaos. There are no rights and wrongs. There are no moral judgments like I'm good or I'm bad or my body's good or my body's bad or this food's good and this food's bad. There's just curiosity and what's working and what's not working. And what's happening is we're observing and we're connecting in a way that is new and different. Here is our fourth paradigm. Diets are not useful as dogma. Dogma is like a religious belief system, and that's because they bring up moral judgment. If I'm not following the rules of the diet, then I'm wrong and I'm bad and I'm falling short. Now we're into judgments and we're out of curiosity when we do that. However, diets are useful as references, as resources. We want to watch the ways that we're giving our power away to an external source, ladies. This diet says this, therefore I must do this, even though, it makes me feel like this. Now consider that each diet may have just a little nugget of wisdom for you. Consider that every diet might contain, a little piece of gold, something that's helpful for you, something that you might want to apply. We can take those nuggets from here, there, from everywhere that are widely agreed upon, and then we can release ourselves from something called rigidity. You see, we want to look at how are we developing as people overall. Forget diets for a second. Just in life, overall, how are we developing something called flexibility versus rigidity? Because you think about a tree that's waving in the wind like a coconut tree. You know, it has this really skinny trunk and this really heavy top. You know, ergonomically, it doesn't make sense that these coconut trees exist. And yet they still stand up to the wind. Why? Because they're flexible. If it was rigid and a wind, you know, could then come and it could crack it down, but it knows how to wave. It's adaptable. It's flexible in the wind. Well, life brings us a lot of wind. And if we're super rigid, we can break. Instead, try learning flexibility, practicing flexibility. Instead of asking life to meet us on our terms, why not learn to meet life on life's terms? You know, when you look at adhering to very strict diets, it's very rigid. There's a series of rules, there's shoulds and shouldn'ts. You have to adhere to them. It doesn't matter if, you know, something's changed in your life or something's changed in your body. It's, you know, if something's blatantly not working, it honestly doesn't matter. You must follow the rules. And that fosters us to become super rigid in the way that we eat and the way that we think. And if you're somebody who's been on a lot of diets, or if you've had a lot of rules around food, you know, a lot of shoulds and shouldn'ts, and if you break that rule, then you feel really guilty. You feel bad about it. And you get into this cycle of self-punishment, self-abuse, and self-judgment. It's like we're trying to hook into diets to have some sort of order to our eating, to have some sort of sense of control. But what we end up creating is actually disorder, because that style of eating is not necessarily the natural style of eating. Now, what I'm inviting you into is switching from being externally referenced. You know, I have to follow those rules out there or I'm bad. And instead exploring internal referencing, which means how can I look inside? How can I honor my body's innate intelligence and open up to the possibility that I get to be curious and in a relationship with my body, in a dialogue, which is a very flexible experience. So, you know, when a relationship is, you know, do what I say and that's it, that's not much of a relationship, right? That's a dictatorship. I'm encouraging you to explore with your bodies how we can work together and give each other feedback. It's pretty mind-blowing change, pretty big mind shift there. The next paradigm is that your perfect diet or the way of eating that's working for you is going to change as you change. You can't be rigid about diets because you're constantly growing and changing. Your phases of life are growing and changing. So the way you need to eat is going to grow and change. You see, our diets are not something static. We would sometimes just, you know, like it to be. We'd like to just get an answer, you know, please just tell me what to eat and what not to eat, what to be done with, and I just want to stick to it. But it's not practical because we're growing, we're evolving beings. And sometimes we have a hard time accepting that, because when we get really rigid about that, you know, again, you know, it doesn't work. You know, if I'm in my 40s, it's unlikely that I'll eat the same way that I ate when I was in my 20s and get the same results, at least. I might try to, but it's not going to be giving me the same results because I'm a totally different person with different hormones, different muscle masses. I've had babies since then. I've had, you know, so much has changed, and our way of eating is actually shifting to support who we're becoming and what's going on in our life at any given moment. Instead of, you know, change being the enemy, that whole mindset, you know, I thought keto worked for me. It worked all 3 times that I did it before, but now it's just my, you know, 4th keto cleanse reset in 10 years, and it's not working anymore. It's not doing anything. I'm not going into keto. You know, sometimes we want to just one way of eating just to be the sole answer because we feel like we need truth. But I invite you to consider reframing that thought to the truth is, you know, the truth in life is change. The only truth in life is change. All of life is change. If we can accept that, then we can start looking at things differently and thinking, you know, how can I use food and lifestyle choices to support what's changing in my life rather than feeling like everything should always stay the same. And the next paradigm shift is that your relationship with your food and your body impacts your health, sometimes even more powerfully than the food you eat. Your relationship might be more powerful than what you eat, who you are being more than what you are eating. Now, this was a huge one for me, and this is not just about health. This is about life. I want to suggest your relationship with your body is the longest relationship you're going to have in your lifetime. And what is it that you're believing when you're relating to your body? And honestly, what is it that you want to believe? The good news is we can always upgrade our beliefs and change our belief systems. And that's a part of what you're learning here in my videos, as I'm helping you lay the foundation for long-term health and life change. Our beliefs shape our experience, and our experience confirms our belief. This is for everything, not just health. But I'm going to use health to give you some examples, okay? So if your belief is food is my enemy, then every time you eat, even if you're eating the healthiest superfood that ever was, kale or whatever, your mind is loading up the belief food is my enemy. And that puts your body on high alert. Now, I have to be on the defense because my body's on high alert. My immune system has to kick up. I'm at war. The enemy is entering the premises. Fight or flight goes into effect subconsciously. So even if you're eating the healthiest food, your body's armed against it and will resist it in some way. So is it possible, honestly, to have the optimum nutrition intake when you believe that food is your enemy? Probably not. Matter of fact, I can tell you right now, the answer is no. Until that belief is shifted, it really doesn't matter what you eat because all the food has been coded in the belief system and therefore in the body as the enemy. We're always winning the game that we're playing. I talked about this last week, so let me know if you want a link to that video for more information about how that works. Let's look at another belief. I am fat. I may not actually be fat, but that doesn't matter because my brain is telling me that I am. And this is interesting because your body has to obey your beliefs. So I'm either going to see myself that way, or I'm going to behave in a way that makes it true. Because your beliefs create your experience and your experience confirms your belief. That means that your body is, to some extent, a creation of your beliefs. So if you believe you're fat, you're going to have to create behaviors that make you fat or situations where you feel fat, no matter how healthy you're eating or how much weight you've actually lost. And this is one of the reasons why even if you lose weight, you're like, you know, maybe this just isn't enough. And that's definitely true for me. I suffer from body dysmorphia as well. I waffled between a size 9 to 16 most of my life. And I'm 5'10", so I'm pretty big. I have big Hawaiian bones, but 9 to 16, big waffling. And I remember losing so much weight at one point that I was a size 7. It was in my 20s and it involved mini thins and slim fast shakes. Kid you not. My friends were even like, don't do that anymore. You are looking freaky, stop. But when I looked in the mirror, I still thought I needed to lose more. It wasn't enough. My coaching mentors call this seeing yourself with fat eyes. So even though the weight was gone, and I was still putting on shorts and being like, oh my gosh, I can't even with these love handles. My belief system hadn't changed. And until the belief changes, I wasn't going to feel safe. It honestly wasn't even going to feel safe in my brain to have that lasting weight loss if my identity believed it was overweight and unlovable anyway. My body has to follow my beliefs. And ultimately, I went back to binge eating no matter what. And I packed right back on the pounds, worse than before. So you're beginning to see that even if you're consistently eating healthiest food in the world, if you believe that food is your enemy, or that you're fat, or that you're ugly, or that you don't deserve to eat, those beliefs are running the show. We're always winning the game we're playing. So let's look at number 7. Every symptom, craving, or behavior around food has a positive intention. Let's breathe into that one. This is a big one. Think about that. every symptom, every craving, every behavior we have around food has a positive intention. Therefore, even the ones that you might not like, they are not the actual problem. They are just the best solution to another problem that your brain has come up with so far. So it's so easy to get stuck and focused on the wrong thing. Okay, so now what do I mean by the phrase positive intention? Well, imagine that every symptom, craving, or behavior wants the best for you. It's like, if I'm binge eating actually has a positive intention for me. It's trying to give me something that it knows that I want, such as, comfort or happy hormones. It's just the part of me that binge eats hasn't come up with a better solution to my needs of comfort and happiness than to binge eat. So instead of shaming or criticizing or judging my eating habits, which is the external, the food addiction, something I've struggled with for years, instead I can look at it and appreciate that it's trying to do something for me. And I can use it as an invitation to seek a new and better solution to finding what it's trying to solve, which is comfort and happiness. Let's take this a little further, okay? With my eating disorder, it started when I was in college. I remember I was 18 years old. I was living in the dorms away from home for the first time in South Dakota. Big cultural shift from Hawaii, huge. Weather, people, everything was different. And honestly, growing up, I was a little sheltered teenager, to be honest. I didn't go to parties or have much of a social life because I had strict parents and I'm honestly pretty socially awkward. So being on my own for the first time with a roommate who was a consummate social butterfly and still one of my favorite people ever, still one of my best friends, it was a whole different world for me. And I really wanted to impress her. And I wanted to make new friends in this place. And I was missing home. And I found something that took away my shyness and fear completely away and didn't taste absolutely nasty. Fuzzy navels. Do you remember fuzzy navels? Peach schnapps and orange juice. Oh, they were yummy. And we would go to parties and the fuzzy navels became my liquid courage that made me feel attractive and energetic and courageous. But they're extremely high in calories and sugar. And honestly, drinking of any alcohol of any kind didn't feel quite right in my body, and it didn't honestly take very much for me to get really, really sick because there was a lot of acid in the orange juice too. So when my stomach began to feel a little off, I would consume really bready carbs like pizza or French fries to keep it from coming back up because nobody wants to be that girl at the party, right? I didn't realize until just recently, actually, that I am actually allergic to brewer's yeast. Yeah, which is the alcohol, it makes alcohol. And my body actually was trying to tell me this way back then, and I wasn't even giving it a chance. And that pattern continued on for years. I developed food addictions and I used food to comfort myself anytime I felt uncomfortable feelings of not fitting in because of my social anxiety, and my social anxiety began to get wired to craving salty and carby foods. It's the biggest problem in my life. Somebody would bring a box of bagels to the office and I wouldn't eat just one. I would eat like 7. I kid you not, because, they'd be sitting there. What you gonna do? And honestly, I could barely admit it to myself, let alone to anybody else. I didn't want anybody to know what was going on in my head. So I would punish myself with starvation diets and extreme exercise programs to hide my shame because I was freaked out about not belonging, about standing out, about not being accepted. But what I didn't understand for so many years until I found coaching was that binging was not actually the problem. Binging was the messenger, telling me that my way of living and my way of thinking was off. Because the truth was, back in that moment, as I was consuming the fuzzy navels and eating entire pizzas, I just really wanted to fit into this new place that I just moved to. Now, the cowboy culture is extremely influenced by alcohol and partying. And I was in college, for goodness sake, give me a break. So I thought that I needed to do it to make friends and to fit in. So was binge eating or drinking my problem? It was a symptom of the problem. But the real problem was the fact that I didn't feel like I could be my authentic self with myself or with others. And I thought that I wouldn't be able to be accepted by others and have my needs met if I didn't go along with the crowd. And so that created a feeling of anxiety. And it's easy to think that something's wrong with you, when you feel that way, which reinforces that idea that you don't fit in and that you need to do anything you can to hide that. You ever felt like you were at the mercy of the world and that your truth doesn't matter? Did you ever feel like you needed to do whatever you needed to do to make people like you, even if it's causing you physical pain? All I knew how to do in response to my anxiety was binge on comfort foods and then punish myself with exercise to hide it. And it happened a lot because there were so many circumstances in my life, including being married to somebody who became an alcoholic. Talk about needing to be accepted by the most important person in your life at the time, that I actually couldn't get myself out of, but they weren't working for me. And I knew they weren't working. So I want to ask you to consider for yourself that every symptom, every craving, every behavior, now it might not be as deep as my experience, understand that, but everything that we're doing has a positive intention, even if it looks destructive and dysfunctional from the outside. This is an extremely powerful paradigm, and it's also an interesting concept to explore with cravings, because so many people struggle with cravings. Are you a sweet person or a salty person? Your cravings are not a problem. They're a symptom of an imbalance. And you might think, I always have cravings. They plague me. Oh my gosh, these cravings. It's not the craving that's plaguing you. It's the fact that there is an imbalance, a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, that's not being addressed. Something is not in alignment. The craving is really the body's request for balance. It's the soul's request for alignment. It's the chaos that shows up to give us the clues to where we need to look to get back into alignment. This is powerful stuff, ladies. This was a life changer for me, to be sure. All right, let's look at the final paradigm. The final paradigm is that nourishment is about so much more than food. It's about food, but it's also about so much more, because nutrition is everything that we consume. Nutrition, right, is the process of taking in nutrients from the food you eat. But I want to suggest that there are so many different nutrients because we're eating all day long with all 5 of our senses, and maybe even our 6th sense. All of our senses are consuming the world. So if nutrition is the process of taking in nutrients, then consider what you're taking in from the world all day long. You're taking in and consuming your environment, your relationships, your conversations, the thoughts in your head, the sunshine, the fresh air, the movement of your body, sleep, sex, your connection with that which is greater, your higher power, whatever it might be. All of those nutrients nourish your well-being. I'm passionate about helping women become fed, deeply fed in all of these areas. And the main reason I chose to get certifications in health and life coaching is because they're so closely connected. They go together. We can't parse out and put health in a box by itself. Your career affects your health, and your health affects your career. Your relationships affect your health, your finances, money, everything does. And they're all related. And that's why I'm getting this information out to help you open up your mind to a new way of thinking about your overall health and well-being. Now, I just want to recap and say that these paradigms are laying the foundation for a completely new approach to the way we think about nutrition, food, body, and life. These paradigms shape the way I approached wellness with my clients and are the foundation of my practice. And I appreciate you joining me today. And next week, I will be discussing the nuts and bolts of nutrition, macronutrients, and explain 100 diets in 10 minutes. Seriously, it's not as hard as you think. Remember, there might be little nuggets in little diets that might be beneficial for you. So sign up for that training in the event section of the group if you want to start building a good foundation for tapping into your inner wisdom, and you really aren't going to want to miss that. And if you're curious to know more about me, about these paradigms, about health and life coaching in general, just set up a quick 15-minute discovery call. It's just a quick little call. I would be happy to answer any questions to help you get started reconnecting to your inner wisdom and repairing your relationship with your body. But the problem is Facebook doesn't like it when we put links to outside sources in our posts. I'm actually learning a lot about Facebook and what they don't like these days. So you will have to comment the word discovery call in the comment section, or you can reach out to me via Messenger so that I can send a link to my calendar, and then you can set that up, a call at your own convenience. Really super simple, no risk, high reward, quick call. But before we go today, I am curious. Let me know in the comments which paradigm resonated most with you today and which one resonated the least. What did you agree with? What did you struggle with? Were there any that you have that you're kind of on the fence about or maybe confused? I'm looking forward to connecting with you. And until then, I'm Noi, it rhymes with joy. And I hope this video has brought you one step closer to yours. Aloha.